When we talk about resilience and we talk about pain, one of the things that I think it might be interesting to know as a parent is pain as far as the brain is concerned. So what I mean by that is when I'm rejected, when I'm hurt emotionally, or when I'm hurt physically, it shows up in the same part of your brain when a CAT scan is done. Being excluded triggers feelings of distress in the brain that also react in the same way to physical pain. So that's just interesting to know, I thought, because sometimes we can maybe minimize some of that physical pain that our kids feel if they're not feeling included or whatever. So how does the amygdala link to all of this? We talked earlier about the amygdala, but it really is a scan. It really looks for and takes in all of the signs between and among people to decide whether someone is approachable or is someone to avoid. And it'll do that by reading facial expressions, tone of voice, looking at the eyes. There's so many things, and we're running out of time, so I'm kind of skipping over it a bit, but there are so many things that our brain does just in facial expression. If we can look into somebody else's eyes, we can get a really great sense of whether there's someone we could approach or someone that we want to pull back from. And we were designed, the resilience material talks about, we were designed to be trusting people. That's our first instinct. But it doesn't take much for our amygdala to kind of go, ooh, threat here, need to step back, need to walk away. And then we have to try to figure out what's going on. Your amygdala interprets someone that trusts you, which release a chemical, a hormone called oxytocin. You may have heard of it. And that just leads to more bonding. And so then you create this great cycle where there's trust happening and all sorts of chemicals being released, and everybody feels good, and it's awesome. And that's kind of what we were created to do. But then if there's sarcasm and rancor and just a feeling of lack of safety, then we pull back. And then we end up with a brain, oh, you can't see, some angry men, a brain in conflict. And so we want to think a little bit about that, because with our teens, sometimes, I don't know if you found this, but there might be the odd time in the stretch of teenage years where you might have a conflict with your teenager. And, you know, teenagers are living, as we learned, from their amygdala, and there's that emotional reaction. As an adult, our brain still wants to react back, because it's kind of a tit-for-tat thing. We're surviving. The problem with that is that when you do that, it just does what? It starts to escalate. And so the other thing, though, is to step back as an adult, either as a teacher or as a parent, feels a bit like you're just allowing this behavior to go on. And we can't do that either. So we need to think about how are we going to deal with conflict in such a way that our brains aren't feeling the pressure of this escalation. Some of the reasons for conflict, and then we'll just look at the solutions. You can see up there. And we all know that there are a variety of reasons. And some of the angry responses that we feel. And again, these are things that are coming out within our brain. So, finding some solutions within that. If you're able to take a step back, to put a bit of space there, not as in you go to your room and I'll decide when you can come out, not that kind of space, as much as we need to take a break. Clearly this is getting to a place where we need to take a break, either again as a teacher or hopefully as a parent. Not using anger and violence. These are just basic solutions. But what they actually do physiologically is they start to slow down and, you know, start to build that trust again that can exist between yourself and the other person. As adults, I think we have to really be careful because, again, our amygdalas are still being developed. The prefrontal cortex is still being developed. So we're modeling these things for our kids. So remembering that conflict, it's not personal. There's so much going on for our kids. Doesn't mean they can behave in ways that are disrespectful, but it's not personal. Monitor and diffuse. Time for cooling down. Of course, forgiveness is always a big piece, isn't it? So the last, in your package, there's 7 rules. This was the gentleman that studied risk, Lawrence Steinberg, had some interesting ideas. Probably nothing that's too, oh, I never thought of that. But I think always as a parent, for me, it's good to be reminded. Oh, yeah. Number 1, what you do matters hugely. The fact that you're here is awesome. You can't be too loving. I found with the invention of texting and all the technology, and I have two teenagers in Ontario in university, I just take every opportunity to say, love you, have a great day, text it. And it's great. They don't have to, nobody knows. It's not like they're going, oh, Mom, shh, my friends will see. It doesn't happen that way because we have text. So as many times as we can, and this is consistent in the research, if we can convey that we're loving our kids, that's really going to be helpful. And the rest there you can see in terms of staying involved and so on. I want to, just looking at time here, I'd like to just take a bit of time to have you think a little bit about something from tonight, and there's a space at the bottom if you want to fill it in. One new idea from brain research, and then one strategy or something that you've taken from this that might impact what it is that you're doing as a parent or as a teacher. So there's some strategies there. We've talked about some things around conflict, and as we've gone along, just mentioned a few other things. What is it that sort of stood out for you around parenting, and what's one strategy? And again, that's just a way to kind of cement the learning that we've done together into the work that you do. I will be available, as I did last time, for questions at the end, but I want to wrap up tonight with just a little fun video. I think sometimes as I find myself surrounded with all this material and looking at it and thinking about being a parent and thinking about being a teacher can get a little weighty, right? You can feel a little weighted down and think, man, this is a tricky thing. And so I want to share with you tonight a short video clip, I think it's 4 or 5 minutes, by a gentleman by the name of Mark Gungor. And I saw him in the context of, he's a speaker, and he runs marriage conferences, and he talks about men's brains and women's brains. Now, there's nothing that he says that I can totally disprove in terms of research, but it's a fun look at some of the differences that exist. And since we didn't get to gender differences, we can watch this and laugh, and next time we can learn whether any of it's true.
We're going to start discussing men's brains, women's brains, and how they're very different from each other. Now, I want to start with men's brains. All right? Now, men's brains are very unique. Men's brains are made up of little boxes. And we have a box for everything. We've got a box for the car. We've got a box for the money. We've got a box for the job. We've got a box for you. We've got a box for the kids. We've got a box for your mother somewhere in the basement. We got boxes everywhere. And the rule is, the boxes don't touch. When a man discusses a particular subject, we go to that particular box, we pull that box out, we open the box, we discuss only what is in that box. All right? And then we close the box and put it away, being very, very careful not to touch any other boxes. Now, women's brains are very, very different from men's brains. Women's brains are made up of a big ball of wire. And everything is connected to everything. The money's connected to the car is connected to your job, and your kids are connected to your mother, and everything's connected to everything. It's like... It's like the internet superhighway, okay? And it's all driven by energy that we call emotion. It's one of the reasons why women tend to remember everything. Because if you take an event and you connect it to an emotion, it burns in your memory and you can remember it forever. The same thing happens for men. It just doesn't happen very often because, quite frankly, we don't care. Women tend to care about everything. And she just loves it. Okay? Now, men, we have a box in our brain that most women are not aware of. This particular box has nothing in it. It's true. It's true. In fact, we call it the nothing box. And of all the boxes a man has in his brain, the nothing box is our favorite box. If a man has a chance, he'll go to his nothing box every time. That's why a man can do something seemingly completely brain dead for hours on end. You know, like fishing. Now, they've actually measured this. The University of Pennsylvania a couple of years ago did a study and discovered that men have the ability to think about absolutely nothing and still breathe. You know, they connected all the wires and stuff like that and watched the brain activity, and then all of a sudden, I think he's dead. Huh? You know, women can't do it. They can't do it. Their minds never stop. And they don't understand the nothing box. And it drives them crazy. Because nothing drives a woman more crazy or makes her feel more irritated than to witness a man doing nothing.
Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that and that you feel like you've learned some things tonight. Please hand in the feedback form, and if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them. But also, I know you need to go, so feel free to leave if you don't want to stay for any questions. Are there any questions? Yeah.